I discovered my wife's 18-month affair when I updated a filter on an app. History: married 17 years with no children of our own. She's been divorced once and had 2 daughters that I helped to raise, now 28, 23, prior to our marriage. We've really only had minor bumps and issues, in my opinion. We've had an open-door type of communication with each other. Whether it be work issues and venting, or in the bed issues, or just how we are feeling. Often we will just talk on the couch about life and philosophy in general. I've felt that we had a great connection and a pretty heavy, fulfilling intimate life. We are both in good shape and maintain a healthy lifestyle. I work in the medical field and due to things being what they are, have been putting in a decent amount of overtime over the past 5 months. She works in a legal consultancy and has been WFH for the past 5 months. Which has made things a bit distant, but on our days off we are tight. Changed the filter on the Dyson fan in our bedroom last night. Asked wife if I could use her phone to update the app, in order to reset the change filter alert. Mine was on the charger next to the front door. I noticed she had put on a pattern unlock, and kinda wanted to ask her what that was about. As I was finding the app on her phone, a notification for Snapchat popped up. My stomach dropped immediately as I read the small tag. "I'll bring the special toy," it said. My brain understood the words, but my mind just stopped functioning. She asked what was the matter, after I guess several minutes of me just sitting and staring at the bedroom fan. My wife has an obligatory quarterly out-of-town meeting that puts her 2 states away for 5 days every business quarter. I knew it was about this coming trip Monday. I've perused Reddit for years anonymously. I've read hundreds of stories that began like this, and never once have I thought about it being me that would sit on my bedroom floor and be in such a cold, dumbfounded state. I recovered and said, "Oh, just getting info about the IP and router." That's how the fan communicates through the app. I have a Chromebook that she logged into Facebook yesterday. I took a week's vacation short notice. My supervisor is a cool chick, and once I laid it out what I may have discovered and have to do. I'm going to need time off. I've been up all night reading her chats. She left to go to the office just now, and I made sure the Google location history was on and find my phone was active. I'm so suspicious of everything she does now I can't look at myself in the mirror. She doesn't know I saw the message notification. I logged onto the messaging system that Verizon uses and have signed in under her number and name. There are at least 15,000 that date back to February of last year, messages, memes, flirty pics, and some X-rated ones too. She stopped texting him this way about 3 months ago. Didn't stop texting him, but stopped using the message app through Verizon. I'm guessing they switched to the Snapchat because it's discreet. I'm not on any social media in any way, shape, or form. I am clueless. I just figured out that you can't log into Snapchat through Facebook. But it just takes an email and password. And she has used this Chromebook to do that. Hell, she used it just 3 nights ago lying in bed next to me rubbing my back while I went to sleep. She messaged him and sexted him lying next to me. It's a younger man from work. He is married and has 3 young children. He and his wife have Facebook. I've met him twice. Shook his fucking hand. I'm at a complete loss again and have paced/wandered my house, that I custom built for her, 4 hours. I almost can't feel anything. What little that I am processing is just white-hot rage. I logged on Snapchat and there it all was. I have called my best friend who has been divorced 3 times, don't get me started on his partner picker, he recommended a vicious lawyer. I plan on recording/saving everything. There's pics of them being intimate. I'm sure her phone or his has video. I desperately want this to be a bad dream. She said terrible things about me. She's told him my insecurities. She's told him, "I love you." They have made no long-term plans, so this feels like a purely for fun relationship. It almost makes it better, but also makes it so much worse. Like she's literally throwing away our life for this. She knows cheating is an absolute deal breaker for me. Our usual routine on the day she leaves for her meetings is I take her to the airport and drop her off with a long goodbye. I can't even think about what I have to do now. My friend says print out the entire thing and see if I can recover things from Snapchat. From what I understand I can't, unless I have her phone. My plan is to see the lawyer today. I'm paying a ridiculous amount to jump in her appointment line. Get the ball rolling and hopefully have a plan of action from her. I really want to book a flight and follow my wife to the hotel she's staying at and catch her in the act. I have access to her hotel booking options and have put myself as a contact person so I can get a room key without alerting her. I think I'm just going to log onto the messaging apps when I get into town and watch it happen in real time. If I could get the papers ready in time, I'd hand them to her. Instead, I'm just going to hand her the printouts. It's a 600-page PDF. His wife accepted my friend request. I am debating sending everything now. I am seething. I just don't want to lose any advantage. I'm going to fly there Monday afternoon, log in and see what they've talked about, get a room key to my wife's room and drop off the package in her room with my wedding ring. I'm going to sit in the bar and watch my phone blow up. I'm going to call the AP and tell him to meet me in the lobby/bar and to bring my wife down. Then tell him that a similar package has been sent certified mail to his home address to his wife. As well as a Facebook message that I plan on hitting send on as I tell him. It feels petty and weak. I want to rage and scream, but I'm helpless. This morning all I could do was give her a peck on the cheek goodbye. I really can't stand to look her in the eye. I somehow have to get through the weekend. I guess I'm asking, is my spiteful, hate-fueled plan worth it? I just want to inflict pain at this point. I want to hurt her emotionally. I feel eviscerated, emasculated. I will not entertain an apology. This is the one act that is unforgivable. It takes so many steps to cheat on someone. They all can be stopped until the sin is complete. Then it is done. Should I just confront her tonight? Or catch her? I don't think I'll update. I'm truly thinking about never using social media again. And only being with a partner that has a similar outlook moving forward. ETA, I found the special toy. Keep in mind we have a chest full of adult fun devices. It was already in her carry-on. It's one of those remote control vibrators. The ones that can be controlled by an app. It looks expensive. I meet with the lawyer in 90 minutes. Update. I met with the lawyer. She was actually kind, and I dare say compassionate with me. She told me point blank that her job was to represent me in this fight for my future, and my job in all of this was to tell her the complete truth and not make her job harder. I went to Kinko's and printed the file out. Cost $534 for color, because I wanted to have the pictures pop. Shout out to Chris at Kinko's for not making a scene when the X-rated pictures started coming out. He asked what it was all about, so I told him. He was taken aback, but shook my hand and said sorry. I went home and crashed for about 3 hours and my soon-to-be ex-wife came home around 19:30, usual time. Lawyer said to forget any Hollywood confrontation in a hotel bar. That it would look pretty crazy and not becoming at all. So I'm sorry to all of those people that wanted the high drama. She's right ultimately. There's two routes to take with divorce, contested or non-contested. She said I would have to notify my soon-to-be ex-wife that I have retained counsel, and in order to proceed my soon-to-be ex-wife would have to either contest the divorce or we would go through mediation and file from there. So, she got home about 2 hours ago. I asked her if there was anything going on that she wanted to talk about. She said nothing other than the election. She then asked what was bothering me. I wanted to cry, but, truthfully, I was cried out. I said I was curious as to why she had a remote control vibrator in her luggage. The look on her face was actually more telling than anything I've ever seen. She looked panicked, pale. She began to breathe faster, sweat. I asked why she would have something like that. Who had the code and the app to it? She stammered and the tears began. As I pulled out my 3 file folders worth of text exchanges, I asked if the AP's wife would have it. She cried and pleaded that she could explain. I said she had 5 minutes to do it. Of course she couldn't. I told her what my attorney told me to tell her. I also told her to leave. She screamed it was her house too. I calmly told her that maybe, but I would be notifying everyone about her affair and betrayal. That even the girls will know. Or, she can leave now and find living arrangements for the time being. Hell, she'll be at her work conference for a week. She was speechless. I calmly pulled up Facebook and showed her the AP's wife. I said, do you want me to tell her or are you going to do it right now? Tears and moaning and pleading with, I love you and, it wasn't supposed to go this far. Then my favorite, you can't do this. I said, well, it looks like I'm doing it, as I sent the AP's wife a message with the file of their escapades on it. I prefaced it with apologies and a brief explanation. I haven't heard back from her. I leafed through the stacks of paper and started reading random excerpts out loud to my soon-to-be ex-wife. I just wish we could spend the day attached to each other. Just you inside of me. You feel so much more intense than any other woman I've ever been with. She is still sobbing and asking to talk about us. She says our marriage can withstand her mistake. I told her I would never forgive her, her words mean nothing, and that she threw away the last 17 years. I'm still entertaining the whole tell HR thing, and I am going to tell everyone about her decision to end our marriage by cheating. Thank you to everyone who responded. I feel bad I couldn't respond to all the PMs and responses. I have a therapy appointment scheduled Tuesday. I kinda feel extremely elated, I'm shaking, and incredibly low right now. I kinda want to die. The house is pretty quiet except for her crying and moaning. I told her to not come back after her trip. I'm currently sending friend requests and trying to get everyone on my page. I'm just going to send it to everyone that way. I am going to wait until the morning to call the girls. I raised them from when they were 11 and 6. They are women now 28 and 23. I don't know what to tell them or how to handle them. My wife was recently contacted by her ex-boyfriend/co-writer and I've grown a bit nervous. Hello everyone, let me first start by saying that my wife and I are very open, maybe way too open about our past and past partners and all that. She is my second wife. My first wife was big on fidelity and we broke up over her cheating. The ex and I share a son. My wife also has a daughter of her own from a previous marriage. We've been married for 5 years and our little blended family works well together. As I mentioned earlier, we are perhaps too open about our past relationships. Her first husband was a serial cheater. He was a musician and slept around with women from his gigs. She stumbled onto his emails only to learn that he was involved with 5 other women, one of which he'd gotten pregnant. Not wanting their child to grow up in a broken home, she wanted to save the relationship and reached out to one of her old internet friends for advice. We'll call him Chris. The two had been friends for 7 years up until that point but had never met. They were writing partners. In fact, before they lost contact they had been writing a novel together. She tells me that when she reached out for support he was very kind and had actually been recommending a lot ways to get past infidelity or what you should speak to attorney about, in general being a good friend. Somewhere in that they decided to revisit writing their book again. According to her they would casually flirt, but as they lived on opposite sides of the country they had no means to act. In all this she decided her marriage was dead and stopped trying to fix things, checked out I guess. She and Chris expressed mutual attraction and by the end of the year he flew out to meet her. She filed for divorce right after the affair got physical, and Chris moved later that year to be with her. To make a long story short, her daughter, who was only 5 at the time, didn't really take to him. As she says, he didn't do anything wrong, she just wasn't adjusting properly after the divorce and didn't like somebody replacing her father. My wife told him they needed to take a break due to this and due to the fact that he's a bit crass sometimes. She had only intended for it to be a short break, but he was apparently so hurt that he'd moved that far to be turned away 2 months in, and so he broke it off entirely. After months had gone by they reconnected to try and finish their book. They began sleeping together again during this time, but it was just a physical thing. They came close to finishing the book, but she started dating me, thus they stopped sleeping together. She felt weird about having an ex hanging around once she got in a committed relationship, and so by her own admission she stopped returning his emails, which were all book-related, with the same frequency and stopped working on it on her end so much. He grew frustrated after a few months of this and blocked her on everything. Which finally brings us to a month ago. After 4 or 5 years of no contact he messages her out of the blue. He contracted COVID and nearly died. Chris contacted her because apparently in that time apart he rewrote the book without her contributions, managed to get published, wrote and published a sequel, and released his work came really close to not be finished if he died. He wanted to make it known that if something should happen to him that he wanted the rights of this thing turned over to her, as she knows how it will end and helped create the story. Fair enough, that actually sounds nice, but then they get to talking. He's apparently writing a comic adaptation, and he invited her to come on board for it. He has a lot of the art done and she was very excited, showing me and explaining to me who all the characters were, their backstories, what she thinks he got wrong in the design. She also read the first book and is telling me which names he changed, what characters were and weren't in their version, the plot differences, and she seems to be having a lot of fun with it. I knew they wrote together, she's mentioned it before, but I had no idea they had this whole universe created. I can tell it was something that was really important to her. She seems like she might take him up on the offer, and this worries me. Every time they've worked on something in the past it leads to intimacy. And there is a bit of adult content in their writing. I'm not the jealous type, and I certainly don't want to step on a dream she had buried, but I don't want a repeat of history. I'll admit I decided to snoop their conversation, and while he seems like he's been on the level and is only really discussing the project, she's pressing for information on his personal life. I wouldn't say in a flirty way, but she asked him if he's seeing anyone now, and when he answered no, he's too busy, that relationships just get in the way, she told him he needs to get back out there. That celibacy isn't a good look on him. We're pretty open about our past intimate life, so I know her ex-husband was terrible at it, and once when drunk she said of Chris, "Don't let a great time in bed convince you it'll be a great relationship." How the hell do I proceed? I know she was emotionally broken by her ex-husband and that's why she cheated, but she did cheat with this man. I've met him, he seems like an on-the-level guy, but they have a history that tells me something might happen. I want to approach my wife with my concerns, but I don't want to seem like an overbearing, controlling person. I want her to have her creative outlet, because she glows in a way I've never seen before when she talks about this book I barely knew anything about. It feels like it's something that was deeply important to her that she forced not to be important. I want that for her, but I don't want their interactions to escalate into something more like they have 3 times already. Update 1. I don't know who this woman is. The level of deception is so involved and deliberate that I'm hardly capable of comprehending that I've spent the last 6 years of my life with this person. I decided to sit down with her and talk about how I felt about the situation, that I was happy she rediscovered her old writing and expressed that it would be cool for her to explore that as a hobby or a profession as she's quite good at it and clearly enjoys it. At the time she agreed, and said that Chris, her ex being around wouldn't be a good thing, saying she was worried that he might be using this as a ploy to talk with her again. When she said these things I was like, okay cool, she has the same misgivings I do and she's not minimizing my feelings or calling me controlling, in fact we're on the same page. Oh how wrong I was. That conversation should have been the end of it, but for some reason my brain started getting weird and I began thinking it was going too well. Yesterday morning when she got in the shower I took her phone and went into it. His number was there and their entire conversation had been deleted. It hadn't been 3 days prior. Red flags. Checked Facebook Messenger, she's talking about her upcoming trip for work which takes her to Vegas. Well apparently this 2-day-long thing has been cancelled due to COVID but she's been telling me she's going. They are discussing a hotel a town over and staying there as well as sending each other people's vacation photos of Vegas so she'll have stuff to show if I ask. She's talking about restaurants they can go to, how there will be a full moon when he's here, and it would look great on the beach. Oh yeah, and he's not on the East Coast as he presented, he moved back to town recently since the prick actually has enough money to live here. He showed her on Google Maps where he's living and it's taking everything I have not to drive my truck straight into his living room. A month ago she claimed that she had to pick up her brother from the airport, nope. That was him. The messages don't go back much further than that but they reference talking about stuff during the years they supposedly haven't had contact. One line I read that he wrote has my heart racing with such freaking madness is from him. Yeah, we're just friends. I don't see you in 8 years and I'm inside you 20 minutes off the plane. Best friends maybe. So she's not just planning to screw him, she's been doing it for months. That trip to her mother's a few weeks back where she stayed the night, yeah. I haven't confronted her yet, but her smile fills me with so much hate now. I'm going to try my best and hold back on saying anything until after Christmas. The kids don't need the holiday being a constant reminder of this, but honestly I'm probably gonna snap and confront her today or tomorrow because my ability to swallow this bullcrap with a smile is almost impossible. Honestly I'll be lucky if I can avoid taking a bath with the toaster. I'm losing my mind right now. Update 2. I'd like to thank everyone who offered advice when I first posted this yesterday. It helped keep my mind away from darker places and it gave my hands something to do. I've been talking with my brother for support and have continued to monitor their communications. She noticed me acting different and I told her it was just me having the blues over the anniversary of my aunt's death which was enough so she didn't start realizing I know all I know. I spent 3 hours today in my car outside of a McDonald's using their Wi-Fi to access her emails, and they're using freaking Yahoo Messenger to communicate. She's on this with her breasts out in a ton of pics, all of which I'm saving. Real cute. There's one with her posed with flowers I got her for her birthday. They've been texting intimately since like March. Some select quotes from her. I can't just start talking about the book all the time. I talked about you twice when he and I got together. If I started talking about you and the book a lot now, he's gonna think something is up. You need to shave because that stubble is like knives. Almost had to put chapstick on my chin and under my nose. From him, you're getting it right before you leave here. I want him to kiss you after you spent the afternoon swallowing me. Honestly, my compulsion not to beat this man to death is strong. I won't do it, but the fact that he's so purposefully vicious is making me want to wear his teeth as a necklace. Final update. I never want to go through anything like this ever again. This was the single most difficult thing I've ever had to do, and I'm twitching like a tweaker every so often now. She left for either work or Chris's today, not really sure where she went, but she was gone. Tried to check her location and either she turned off locations or my phone was giving me issues. I didn't have the means to serve her, that comes later this week, but I had to confront her before she realized what I was doing so she wouldn't have any more time to formulate some working lies. Heard my garage door opening and turned on the camera on. She comes in completely oblivious. I tell her she ought to sit down because we've got to talk. Deer in the headlights look, but she sits down and asks me what's wrong. I ask, why don't you tell me? She plays dumb, but I see she knows she's been found out. She asks me again what's wrong. I ask her what's really up with Chris. She says nothing, she hasn't heard from him. I redirect and decide to not confront her as directly and tell her that I'm uncomfortable with her working with him and that it's not something I can get past. She's 100% instantly agreeable and asks me very nervously why I changed my mind so quick and why I'm acting the way I am. I just shake my head and say something like, I wanted to be understanding about it, but I got weird vibes from him and I'd prefer they wouldn't talk. She insists that he doesn't mean anything to her anymore, that she was just happy to see the book get made. I told her that he basically stole from her and she's being way too understanding about that fact. That she ought to sue him over it, and she agrees with me. By now she's probably thinking she got out of this and is going to break it off with Chris the minute she gets a second to do so. But then I tell her the whole thing has really stressed me out and I'm gonna take next week out of work. I tell her that I talked with my ex and she agreed to keep my son that weekend so I could go to Vegas with her. That's why I was talking to my ex for so long the other day, working out the details of her taking my son, or at least that's what I'd ever think. Deadpan stare. I start talking about how COVID has shut down a lot of stuff and I'm not even sure what's open in Vegas. She cuts me off and tells me that it was actually canceled today. The conversation from here on goes like this. Paraphrased, of course. Me, it got canceled last month. Her, no, he told us today because he wasn't sure whether or not it was off until today. Me, I know it got canceled last month. Her, what are you doing? Why are you telling me you want to go and then telling me it's canceled? I don't get what you're doing. Me, it was canceled last month. What were you gonna do if I didn't ask about it? Her, you're freaking me out. It was canceled today. Me, what were you going to do in town? Name where her hotel is. Her, what are you accusing me of? Me, how long have you and Chris been back together? Her, we haven't done anything. Did he tell you we were? Me, don't lie to me. I don't want read off everything he texted, it almost made me throw up doing it the first time. I can't believe you do this. Her, I love you, I'm sorry. He's been texting me a lot lately and saying a lot of messed up stuff and I don't know how to deal with it. I wanted to tell you this but I was afraid you'd do what you're doing now. I was just hoping he'd stop on his own. Me, you didn't see him for 8 years and 20 minutes after he got off the plane you got in bed with him. Her, what plane? What are you reading? Me, he lives on street name. You wanna stop this? Just admit what you did so we can move forward with this. Why did you tell me he lived in East Coast? Her, did he say something to you? He lies constantly, it's part of the reason why we broke up. I told you that. I knew I shouldn't have responded to his messages, it's always drama with him. All his messages were fine, but he started with the missing me stuff again like always. I was going to tell you. Me, he wanted you to come home and kiss me after you were going down on him. I read your messages, I saw them in your email and in your texts. You're cheating on me and I want you out of this house today. Her, what? I'm not cheating on you. If you don't want him around, I'll tell him to get lost, but honey, I'm not cheating on you. Is that what he told you? He's lying. Me, stop it. I told you I went in your messages on your phone. You're going to get your stuff and you're going to go to your parents. I made copies of your emails and screenshots from your texts. I don't want to show them what you two say to each other, but if you're going to keep lying to my face, I will. We're done, go get your stuff. She tried even in the face of all that to play stupid and lie, but finally tired of it, I broke out my copies of their texts and handed them to her. She looked at them for 2 seconds and then broke down crying hard. Like I've never seen her this devastated by anything. I even felt bad for her for a little while. She said she was sorry, that it got out of hand and she wanted to put the brakes on it, but he had gotten possessive and was threatening to expose her if she ended it with him. I told her that none of that was in their texts and that she's still lying to me. She was going to go off and spend the weekend with him. She then told me it's done between them and she'll make him go away, she won't ever talk to him again. I told her I don't care what she does, but I've been talking to a lawyer and the divorce papers will be ready soon. At this point she explodes and repeats, "You've been talking to a lawyer," like 4 or 5 times, and honestly I was ready to call the cops because she's closing in on me and really screaming now. I tell her to calm down, that I have a camera going. She then continues to break down and not resemble anyone I've ever met before. Kept saying stuff like, "You just planned all this out." Smiling to my face, just planning this all out. Which every time she did I responded with the same, "Well, look at what you've been planning," and smiling to my face while you're out doing intimate acts. I asked her why she'd do this to us and at first she couldn't give me a straight answer. She tried to tell me it was meaningless, so I responded with, "Oh, so you ruined us for no reason then, that's great." After a bit she sort of got quieter and I don't know if she was being honest or just trying to hurt me, but apparently she really messed up with him in her eyes. She called him her soulmate and I nearly started breaking stuff. I asked her why she just didn't ditch me for him in the beginning. I would have understood then, and she says she just needed to get away from him because she knew how bad she'd look to her family if she brought him back around. Apparently they didn't like him either. She also said that she could never and can never actually be with him because her ex and daughter would fight her on this. So going back to him legitimately was never an option. She then said she was sorry and seemed to be in disbelief with how final I was with everything. She told me how much of a mistake it was, how much she would change and do whatever I wanted her to just to fix the situation. I told her no. She then told me we're not getting a divorce because she can make amends for this. I told her there was nothing she could do to earn my forgiveness. I will not forgive this ever, and somehow she had the gall to be shocked by this. I told her then I opened an account in another bank and moved half from the joint account into it this morning and that the rest is hers. She can either get it herself or I can get it for her, but the account is getting closed. She just nodded along and said we'd probably both have to go to the bank together to close it. She went and started packing her clothes up, peacefully, crying a little and oddly enough making threats every so often that she had better not have anything missing. I let it roll off my shoulder and told her to take pics of how she left her things and daughter's things so when she comes back she'll see I didn't touch anything. Her folks had been contacted and they're in disbelief. They're both surprised that Chris is even a factor in any of this and spent time apologizing to me, and soon after she was out of my house. The next day soon-to-be ex-wife hit my phone with so many "I love you, I'm sorry, we can fix this" texts that I contemplated flushing my phone. I wanted to just turn it off, but my ex-wife had my son, so I needed it on just in case of an emergency or a change in plans when he was coming home. So I just started responding to her texts by sending screenshots of the worst parts of their conversation and saying nothing of my own. Ex returned with my son and brought dinner from my favorite Chinese place. I didn't give my son the exact reason when I told him, but he asked flat out whether she cheated because it was so sudden, and I told him he was right without elaborating. They stayed for a while before returning home and I've just been kind of floating around the house trying to keep it together. It's like 2 or 3 days since I began writing this and I'm off to the gym and then my lawyers. This thing is already way too long and things are updating so rapidly that I could be typing forever and never finish. My soon-to-be ex-wife's ex-husband is going to come by and collect his daughter's things, and I'll explain to her the best I can that if she ever needs me I'm just a phone call away. I'm also contemplating telling her ex that she ran around with Chris on him as well because she said many times he doesn't know. But maybe I won't, that accomplishes nothing really. Anyway, first fight has been fought and it looks like I'm winning as much as one can win given the circumstances. Part of me wants to confront Chris, but I'm smart enough that all that would be a waste of time and energy. Time better spent working or hitting the gym or finding some way to thank my ex-wife for being an absolute MVP in my corner through this. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Sorry if this is disjointed, but it's taken me a couple days to write, and of course developments keep happening. My wife cheated in front of our son. My soon-to-be ex-wife and I are both 26 and we have a 5-year-old son and 10-month-old girl together. I work as one of the managers at an IT company whilst she works as a receptionist at a hospital. She hasn't been working much due to pregnancy and maternity leave. I'm quite an outgoing person, whereas she is quite introverted and only really enjoys spending time with close family members, her family plus me and the children, and friends she's known since childhood. On Saturday, July 1, 2023, an ex-employee from my place of work, age 23, came to my house thinking I would be around because he knows I don't work on Saturdays. He wanted to give me important documents that I had left at his house the previous day when we were discussing work-related matters. My wife opened the door and didn't know who he was, so he explained himself that he works for me, and then she allowed him inside and offered him coffee whilst he waits for me. I was at my parents' house 5 miles away. This is what happened next, according to this ex-employee, as best I can, remembering him saying over the phone 2 days ago, our conversation. Employee: do you know about me and your wife? Me: what do you mean? Explain. Employee: remember that day last month when you weren't home and I came to drop off documents, and sorry because I should have called you beforehand. Me: yes, so what? Employee: after your wife invited me in and offered to make coffee, we began to talk and quickly bonded over literature. She was very friendly, and I know what I'm about to tell you was very wrong of me to do, but we started kissing, and your son, who came into the living room at that moment, then asked who I was, and she told him not to worry, that he should just go watch TV. We then went upstairs and, slept together. Me: are you joking? Because if you're just trying to cause trouble, don't. Employee: no, it's not a lie. I just thought I would tell you because that little boy saw his mother with someone else, and years down the line, if you ever did find out, I wouldn't want you to think that I scared a little boy without caring. Remember that your wife is the married one, not me. I didn't force her. Me: I don't believe you at all. Employee: that is why I resigned, July 7th, because I didn't know whether you knew or not and would rather resign than have a sacking on my record. Me: I'll ask her, and if true, I'll deal with you appropriately. Employee: okay, but like I said, I didn't force her, not did I do anything illegal. You won't hear from me again, sorry. I was livid with anger and hurt at the same time. This is an employee who only started working for me in May, and I'm certain she never even knew he existed up until that day. I asked her, who denied it at first but then owned up to what happened after she realized the severity of the situation, including the employee quitting. She said she is very sorry and doesn't know what came over her. I then said, apparently our son saw you, and then she began crying. I said to her that I was going to stay with my parents for a few days whilst I decide what to do. My parents and even her family members too are very supportive of me and do not condone what she did. I've seen my son on FaceTime and baby daughter too, and told them that I will be with them soon. I've decided that there is no coming back from this and will definitely get a divorce from my wife, but the only issue is custody and finances. I don't want to be like the many men who get a divorce due to the fault of their wives, only to lose the house and only see the kids on the weekends. How do I go about this to ensure I don't lose the house and that I see my kids as equally, if not more than her? I live in England, by the way. Wife had been flirting with her coworker. She said she would stop, but it just happened again. Is there any future in this relationship? My wife and I have been married for slightly more than 3 years now. Last Christmas, I found she had been having a long conversation with a coworker of hers, in which they talked about having had sex multiple times and that they couldn't wait for the next one. The guy said he was going to book a hotel near their office right after Christmas. In this conversation, when he said he was looking forward to seeing my wife, she would reply with things like, I'm looking forward to much more than just seeing you, etc. You get the idea. Overly flirty and intimate. When I confronted my wife, she denied the conversation existed. After deleting it, she showed me her phone to prove it didn't exist. But I had taken a few pictures. She then said it was all virtual and that they never did anything physical. To prove she was right, she messaged her coworker, in front of me, asking if he had booked the hotel. He replied, not yet. She then asked if he was really expecting them to meet, to which he replied negatively. She promised they would never talk again and I agreed, simply because I love her a lot and wanted to trust her, but in my mind I wasn't completely sure she had been honest. For a few weeks, I must admit I checked her phones a few too many times, so she changed her password, which I was fine with because I was probably being too paranoid. This week, I picked her phone up because I needed a code that had been sent to her phone number. I didn't even need to unlock the screen to get it. To my surprise, under the message with the code there were other messages from the same guy. One of them was an audio, the second one was a shirtless photo of himself in front of a mirror, and the third one said "sweaty" and a few emojis with the tongue. I confronted her since she had promised they wouldn't talk ever again, and she said he just wanted to show her he's going to the gym to show progress. But that the rest of the times they talk it's just about work, and that this is just a coincidence. I asked her to show me the rest of their messages, but she said she had mistakenly deleted their conversation history. My wife says she's going to change this time and that I never really forgave her and that's why she kept talking to the guy. She says this time she's really going to stop, but I have a hard time believing it. Or even if she does stop, I fear when things don't go so well between us she'll do it again. I really love her but can't keep living like this. Is there any situation in which this can work? What would you do? Update. You were right. I ignored every single one of your comments and eventually caught my wife with the other men. This is a tough pill to swallow, and I can't say I hadn't been warned. Many folks asked me to follow up with an update, so here it is, fresh from the oven. After reading every single comment of the Reddit post, my brain just couldn't overcome the catastrophe and the collapse of the world I had built for me, in which my wife is my love, my best friend and partner, as well as the person I admire the most. She was entirely perfect and made me happy for many years. I thought no couple in the world could have what we had. We were both very happy for a long time. We were both attractive, we were both inherently good, had big hearts, and were individually wildly successful in our careers. After the Reddit post, I moved to an Airbnb and eventually with family to think things through. It was a terrible time, but a psychologist helped me recover from a terrible mental state. It coincided with the pandemic hitting very hard in my city. I caught the virus, which didn't help. During this time, we kept talking and my wife was very sorry and continued saying they hadn't met. I knew it wasn't true but was willing to forgive the woman of my dreams, who continued being in the highest altar of my universe. Fast forward last Saturday morning, I went back to our place, ready to forgive her and talk things through in the most mature way possible. And well, there she was, but I was the one who received the biggest surprise, to say the least. The guy was in my house naked, and so was my wife. The guy from the messages, the guy from the pics. The one she said she didn't even like. I caught him hiding in my bathroom as my wife was putting her pajamas on. When I saw him hiding in my bathroom, he uttered, "Sorry dude." For a second, I asked myself, is this where I kill him? But I instantly replied, I got nothing against you, because the guy was just nailing this hot woman. Even if he was doing so in a house full of pictures of me. Pictures of our wedding and our families. Pictures of my dead father, who would be so sad to see how the marriage he never witnessed was going to end. He has always been the reason I try to make the world a better place. He passed away 2 months before our wedding. I'm sorry. I still love her to death. But I understand enough is enough. Even if my world collapses, I hope I can build a new one without lies and in which I'm not just a blind believer under the altar of a fake god.